one of the things that we've noticed on campus as students, so we had our O week, our welcome week, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and every single left wing stall, including the Labour Left Club, had a Palestine flag on it. And I was just wondering, what are your thoughts on this very bizarre alliance between the left and the pro-Palestine cause, which we know is it is a jihadist regime, Hamas, that's running Gaza. So where is this sort of weird thinking coming from that the left should somehow support Palestine?
Well, if I may take a couple of moments just to flesh this out, the progressive ideology, and it's very important that we distinguish between the left and progressives, because the moderate left represent a hell of a lot of people in this country and in others, and used to stand for, when they were prepared to speak up to the extremists on their own side, for very important things, dealing with inequality, making sure that power does not accrue in the hands of a small number of powerful people, making sure that minorities are not being mistreated and looked down and so on, and excluded from the national conversation. But what has happened is the left has been taken over by the so-called progressive. And a very good left-wing friend of mine in the UK, Maurice Glassman, who's a member of the House of Lords, he always says to me, if you go to the doctor and they say it's progressive, not good news usually. So that faction of the left has been allowed to take over because of the cowardice and the ignorance, but mostly because of the cowardice of the center left. And what is the progressive mindset? The progressive mindset is, and people don't like hearing this because it takes us into the realm of actually the debate that you raised, Tony, about the Long March. It's the oppressor versus oppressed mindset. And there are actually quite a number of Russian speakers of the elderly generation here today who will know exactly what I'm talking about, because this is what we had in the Soviet Union. And so when the class-based Marxism idea that we tried in the Soviet Union so beautifully failed, what happened is these people in the West worked out that we need to find a different way to divide people. And so what we now do is we divide people into oppressor versus oppressed on the basis of race or sex or other historical oppression or whatever. And therefore, it makes perfect sense, because if you start to measure whether people are badly treated or well treated on the basis of how successful they are in society, then you very quickly come to the Jewish question, as Adolf would put it, right? And you have to look at them and go, why are Jews disproportionately represented in media, in banking, and all these institutions, which they are, right? And if you are not able to say, well, it's because of culture, it's because they teach their children to work hard, it's because of all these other things, then you have to say they're overrepresented because they're overly powerful. There's a nefarious group of Jews who are conspiring together. And Israel, to some extent, represents this problem even better, because it's a tiny country surrounded by enemies that is able to nonetheless punch massively above its weight and defend itself in the face of terrorism and military invasion over decades. So the reason you're seeing this alignment, even though it makes absolutely zero logical sense, is that it is the oppressor-oppressed dynamic being applied at that level, and then it suddenly all makes perfect sense.
Brilliant. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, look, I think that there are things about which people may very well disagree, and there are things where I think some people exhibit a degree of derangement. And I think that the left on Hamas and the whole Israel-Gaza thing is simply deranged. I mean, all the things that the left in Australia claims to value are denied brutally in Gaza, and yet the left are on the side of Hamas. It just makes no sense whatsoever, unless there is some kind of compartmentalization going on in their minds. And as I said, I think it's a species of derangement.